Hi everyone, welcome back to My Cricket Gear. Today we're going to be reviewing our first bat for 2025, the most talked about cricket bat over the last 12 months. It's one that we've had so many people sending messages asking us about to find out more information about it. Obviously a lot of people wanting to pull the trigger, and based on the early sales that I've seen at retailers and speaking to the company themselves, yeah, they've just been selling like crazy and really hard to get hold of at the moment. Of course, I'm talking about NeoCore. So we've actually got two NeoCore models in, a lower grade one which comes in the normal Gray Nicolls case, and then sort of a higher end one which has its own NeoCore branded case. Probably going to spend most of our time talking about this one, but it's nice to have the two here to have a look at together. Comes in three price ranges, and it's strange with the NeoCores because they actually have a different grading system to the other models in the UK. So the entry level is the NeoCore 500, and that's 34999. Then you've got the NeoCore Pro grade, which is £550, and then at the top end you've got the Players Edition, which is 69999. At the moment there is no higher, more flagship model than the Player Edition NeoCore. By that I mean there is no Legend. Obviously the Legend is the most expensive. It's been, you know, the top model available from Gray Nicolls in the UK for a number of years, but they're not doing it at the moment. So actually the Players Edition NeoCore bat is the very top, the best that you can get from Gray Nicolls in the UK. There isn't a Players Edition in any of the other models. Guys who know Gray Nicolls know that Pro Performance is the top model that they do. I think retail price on that's about £600, so this is £100 dearer at the top end. And then you've got the NeoCore Pro grade at £550. That probably sits more sort of the players grade. I think the players grade is £500 now, so the Pro grade, which is in the middle of the NeoCore range, is, yeah, it's still a bit more expensive. And then the 500 grade at £350, you know, sits above a lot of the others. That's still a decent money considering that is the entry level model for NeoCore at the moment, and probably I don't expect it to ever come out. There is no junior bat. This is just a senior bat for adults. So kids that really want a NeoCore, unfortunately, at least at the moment, you'll need to go with a senior bat. I will have a look at them quickly first. For anybody that's ever bought from a retail store probably won't see that the Gray Nicolls bats actually can come in either cellophane wrap or in brown paper bags. I quite like the brown paper ones. I don't know if that's going to be standard now, but that's the most recent one that I've got. Now, just to have a quick look at the cases before we start, I think they seem identical, but I like them because they're half-length ones, so really good if you put them in your kit bag. Nice bit of padding. As standard, I think they were giving away free ones for a long time. I don't know if they are with all the bats, but certainly for a number of years I'd even seen in retailers they'd have like a stack of them that they'd give, and that's always a nice touch if a brand's giving you a padded case. I prefer these ones to the ones I see in that some of the Indian bat makers supply, because I just don't find there's the protection that I would want on them, and I don't like the little window cutout that they have on them. Useful for retailers, but not really for me as a player. This one, I think, it's just nicer, isn't it, when you've got the actual model on there. It's a bit in your face, I suppose, if you're walking to a game and you're showing everybody I've got a NeoCore, but if you're someone that cares about that, then there you go, everybody will know that you've got a NeoCore. They have now got, as you see the stickers at the back, the Gray Nicolls style, they're a lot wider here than they have been in previous years, and obviously in the case of NeoCore it's to hide the fact that there isn't a splice on the bat. I don't know, for me, it being so wide, I don't know how I feel about it. I suppose because I know what the one looked like before, slightly unusual, maybe it'll take a bit of time to get used to. Obviously the front still looks like the same width here, but obviously at the back it is wider. NeoCore also has the dot, as you can see on here, so people know. That's important if the bat is going in for repair, because I don't see how anybody can repair these bats apart from Gray Nicolls. Companies won't have the equipment, and they certainly won't have the handles that are used in the NeoCore bats. So That for me is, yeah, it's going to make it a challenge. One of the big things they've talked about in terms of the NeoCore is its shape. And shape is a big thing now. Everybody is chasing these big bats, the sort of the pro shaped bats. You see them more and more as we've got, you know, better video footage of in 4K, and you've got zoomed in photos of bats. Everybody wants those big full sort of pro shaped bats, and there's an element of that with the NeoCore that they're trying to give you the full shapes, you know, with the duck billing, just like the pro bats are. What they're trying to do differently is they're trying to use heavier wood, which, to be honest, tricky to do. So whenever I've talked about the pro bats, it's always about low density willow. The problem is there isn't a huge amount of low density willow. You know, as a bat maker, when you get a heap of willow arrive, all these clefts, you don't know off the bat whether it's going to make a light bat or not, whether those pieces of wood will be light enough or not. For all the bats that we can make that are decent size, that are you know, weigh that sort of 2.9, 2.10, there's loads of willow that doesn't sort of meet that level of density. It's too dense, it's too heavy. And what do you do with that willow? Do you dry it out more? So now it's sort of 5-6% instead of 10-12%. What does that mean for the bat? Yes, it can be lighter, but it's really not going to last very long. It's going to break up very quickly. So you hear bat makers sometimes talk about willow that's been over dried, and then you know, you're looking at the fact that they have to do something with this willow. So what can they do? They can make you a bat that looks like this, but it could weigh 3 pounds. It could weigh 3 pounds too. And to be honest, how many of us are actually going to use a bat that's that heavy? The alternative, which you normally see with bats in order for them to achieve that sort of 2.8, 2.9, 2.10, is that they concave the bats. So they've had a lot of scooping, scalloping in this area here, you know, thin edges, thin spine, and then it doesn't look visually pleasing. Everybody feels more confident when their bats, you know, look bigger. And I've spoken to plenty of the pros around, and they've said that, you know, that's a big part of it's a psychological thing for them. So Gray Nicolls have tried to address that by scooping out the inside of the bats. Obviously, Gray Nicolls are known for their scoop bats, and in their marketing literature they've mentioned about an internal scoop. So an internal scoop means that they drill a hole. I've got an image from when I was at the Gray Nicolls factory last summer, and you can see there, and they've basically bored the hole down, and obviously it goes quite deep, and it's quite a decent sort of diameter on it. It's not a tiny little hole, it's quite a decent size that they've bored into. Now, some people have been hypercritical, you know, badgers like myself, and those have said, oh, hold on a second, haven't other companies done this before? And yes, other companies have done this for a long time. So it's not actually a new thing to scoop the inside. Certainly not a new thing to remove weight that way. One of my favourite Gray Nicolls bats that I will review soon is the scoop that the Australian Gray Nicolls have done, which the ping's fantastic on the bat, you know, before you've even seen the review, and kind of just confuses me how well it performs in the scoop area. So removing weight that way is not unheard of. It's been done for a long time. The part that really people should be focusing on is around the handle and how that differs, because that is different to anything that I've seen before, certainly in terms of how it works. So basically, where the cane used to be a V and would go in, it's now round, cylindrical, and it goes down like a pipe would run into the bat, and then they pin it, put a pin through the back and the front there to prevent it sort of from moving. They've obviously done lots of science engineering, I guess, with a university, and had a look at sort of performance, and they're talking about, you know, how the bat sort of twists in your hands, and, you know, and obviously if they can reduce that, that will help with performance, which absolutely it does. You know, when we're batting, we're always talking about using the full face of the bat, so anything that's presenting the full face that way should aid performance. But that for me is the big thing about the NeoCore. It's less about the coring out itself, and for me it's more about the handle. Speaking of the handle, it's very, very large. Down at the bottom, it's as big as any of the handles that I've ever used. You know, if you're used to those old school thick handles, then it's very much like that. Now, if you're someone that wants a thin handle I really think this is not going to be the bat for you, because it's too thick. Even up here it's pretty thick, but down here towards the shoulder of the bat, very, very thick. And just to sort of make a case in point, I've got an SS bat, just to give you an idea of just how much bigger this handle is. So if you have a look at these two side by side, oval handle, and this one is a round handle. I don't know visually if you feel like you can see already that there is a difference, but just going to zero the calipers, and on this handle here I've got 35.7 mil on it, so just over 3.5 centimeters. And then on this one, with the grip on it, I've got 41.2. So what's that? That's 4.5 millimeters thicker from back to front. And obviously it's wider as well, but from back to front, 4.5 millimeters. You're looking at what, 13% thicker? So that's quite dramatic. Certainly it means that I would say you don't need that second grip. For those that want to put them on there, you really don't need them on a bat like this. Probably put a lot of people who like those thin whippy handles off. Now, is there a reason why they've had to go so thick? I'm probably guessing it's to do with the strength of the handle, with it slotting in that amount of force as you hit it. If the handle is thinner, I'm guessing it probably snaps in half, which is not what you want on a bat. That could be one of the reasons that's there. Another reason, which is really important, is to do with balance. Remember, this piece of wood here is heavier than a normal piece of wood. They are trying to use those heavier pieces of wood that they have. And for a company the size of Gray Nicolls, they probably have loads of heavy willow. So this is a really good way for them to make use of the willow. But because the willow will be heavier on this side, they need the bat to balance. So it makes sense for them to use a heavier handle here. And that then leads to this question around sort of scale weight and what these bats actually weigh versus how they pick up. And Gray Nicolls have been at pains to kind of say to people, it's about the pickup weight, it's not about the actual weight. And you've seen Tammy Beaumont, you've seen Moyeye from Kent, you know, sort of guessing the weights. I think there were some West Indian cricketers that got Gray Nicolls that were sort of picking up the bat and trying to sort of guess the weight, and they're all guessing, and it's lighter than they thought. But a huge part of that is to do with the balance, because these handles are thicker, which means they're heavier here. And remember, handles typically can account for what, 9 to 15 ounces of a bat. So an even thicker handle is going to account for even more weight. Because you've scooped out some of the wood here, you think I'm saving a lot of weight, but probably what you're doing instead is this ends up weighing more like a normal bat. But in order to get that super light pickup, they've actually got to add more weight back on. So it's like taking weight away from here and placing more weight in this area here. And there are some, you know, advocates for like that. That's what bats were like historically. You've seen the likes of a Paul Aldred, you know, talk about the handles and the balance. And I suppose this is a case of that, where it's not about the dead weight, it's about the balance. But I would still argue that there's only so much of that you can do, because in the end, you say it feels like it's 4 ounces lighter. If a bat's still 213, 214, even if it feels lighter there, it's still going to limit me with certain shots. So I like to play the drive shot. You've seen in videos that I've done before where I'm batting. I love playing it. Not an issue, even with a heavier bat. The struggle comes when you're trying to play those cross-batted shots, because it's still dead weight. That's still an obstacle to overcome. The science kind of makes sense. You're shifting more of the weight towards your hands. It's always the thing, you know, I'm talking about where you put counterbalance and things there. Just a little bit of weight sometimes can make it just feel a lot lighter. Other things they've probably had to do to make it feel lighter is around this area here, the duck billing. Now for me, the duck billing is, it's a bit of a bone of contention. It's not something that I really like too much of. If we have a look here, this is probably more akin to the newer SS bats. Anybody that's owned a GM Chroma here in the UK, or seen them in the shops, where there's a lot of duck billing down at the bottom there. So, you know, I've talked to the likes of like Assault and Milan, and their view is that, well, I'm not trying to hit the ball here. You know, looked at Bairstow's SSs and those two, you know, Salt, Milan previously, all SS users, really like a very, very duck billed bat. For me, visually, it looks a bit disproportionate, a bit too much duck billing down there, but for the pros, they're trying to hit it here, they're not trying to hit it there. So they say, you know, if it makes the bat feel lighter, then why not? And I do think Gray Nicolls, obviously, with the view of trying to get these bats to feel super light, have, you know, taken more wood out of the bottom there just to try and get them that extra weight saving. So this one is a player's edition. It's got straight grain straight through the toe, so there's no toe guard at the bottom there, so I can actually see. Heartwood on the inside edge there. You know, plenty of grains on the face there. They're very sort of nice, prominent grains. Pops looks really nice. Definitely English willow. I'm having to mention that now because I'm seeing more and more bats where the willow looks questionable as to whether it's English or not. Definitely a lot of companies, not just in the UK but all over the world, that are trying to find ways to find more willow to make bats with, which I don't really mind for low-end bats, but for top-end bats I expect to see English willow still, and obviously I expect companies to actually say it's English willow and then for it to be English willow. So here you've got finest handcrafted English willow. Yep, this looks like English willow to me, so no problems with that. But yeah, I mean, this is now the flagship product. This is a player's edition bat, and if we just go to pick it up, it does feel light. You know, it feels slightly lighter than what I use at the moment, which is 210 and a half. So it would be interesting to see what that one weighs in at. I'll look at the 500 now. Now this is the entry level grade, but £350 for an entry level bat is not cheap. Grains generally a little bit of wave, but they are going straight through the toe, which is important. Little pin knot there, little sort of blemishes there. Heartwood on the outside edge, my sort of preferred in there. But nice again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a decent looking piece of wood aside from that mark there, but I can't really treat it as entry level because, like I said, the price point, you know, this is not a £150, £200 bat, this is a £350 bat, so having to treat it as such, I suppose that's what I'd expect to see in the wood. So yeah, nice. Again, to feel it, really thick handle. Profile doesn't look quite as big, so this one probably feels lighter. This one probably feels more crazy. I was going to say 2.9, but it actually feels more like probably just under 2.9, maybe 2.88, 2.87. So this feels like 2.87. This one feels lighter than my normal bats. I'd say a shade under 2.10. This sort of like a 2.98. This feels like a 2.88. Moment of truth. Putting it on the scales to see what it's like. So we'll start off with the 500. And an ounce is 211.2. What did I say I felt? This one's like 288. So yeah, nigh on 2.5 ounces lighter. Now we'll try this one. 210.7. So actually, what did I say this one felt like? This one felt like 298. So this one's about an ounce lighter, but this one feels a lot lighter. Maybe that's a case of that's why that's the player's edition. They're using willow that maybe isn't quite as heavy, whereas for this one they're clearly using heavier willow. But the interesting thing is that this one picks up lighter. Now, feeling with my hands, the reason could be because this handle feels ever so slightly thicker, and obviously that's giving more of a counterbalance effect. So interestingly, this bat's actually heavier than that bat, but this one feels lighter than that bat. Makes for sort of very interesting discussion, I guess, for people at your club if you end up getting one of these and wondering, you know, what's it like. We'll give it a little tap and see whether or not we can identify where the coring happens on here. So you would have seen other people. I did this. I mean, I got these bats in November when they sold out really quickly. I just haven't had time to kind of go through them. But here, it sounds like a normal bat. Nice ping. definitely a difference in sound up here. So maybe I'm going to use my finger and just give it a little knock with it and see if I can hear. Somewhere around about there, so gives you an idea of just how deep they're coring. Pretty much up around the peak of the spine you're going to have coring down there, and I think that actually aligns with the NeoCore sort of imagery Gray Nicolls have posted to give people an idea of where the coring occurs on the bat, if you think that's the same. For me, it's important that you've got a company like Gray Nicolls, you know, trying to push things on and progress. I think there'll be traditionalists. I suppose I'm like a semi-traditionalist. I like it when there are innovations, but don't innovate for the sake of innovating. Utilising English willow that is too dense is a really positive thing. Obviously, some people might think, I suppose you're cheating slightly because you're hollowing out. And to be honest, I've started to see more companies trying to do it. So everyone's trying to get the weight saving, utilising heavier English willow. I do think English willow is still the best of all the willow that's out there. So willow from other countries that they've tried to use, I just think from a consistency standpoint, don't get me wrong, I can find another piece of willow from another country and I'm sure it could perform brilliantly, but can they do it consistently? That's the $1,000,000 question. Certainly for cricket, they need to find a solution because the demand on willow is immense, and for us as consumers, we're paying the price. The price of willow is going up, and that is being passed on to the consumers, so we're having to pay more money for our bats. It's not just a labour cost, it's also the materials itself, and to get a top end bat is going to cost more and more money, I'm sure, over time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 500, I'm going to get it knocked in, I'll get a sheet put on it, and then I'm going to go in and have a hit with it. Interested to see that I actually think it will perform better than I expect. Obviously Gray Nicolls are pushing that idea that it will perform better, but my expectations are that it will perform better, and the big reason for that is it's using denser willow. Low density willow, big bats and all that jazz, but actually denser willow I think will bring higher levels of performance, but dense willow is heavy, so you're trying to fight against the extra weight penalty. But if you can wield those heavier bats, those denser bats, I think you can get the better performance. So this will be a really interesting thing for me to see. So I'll get this one knocked in and prepped, and then we'll go straight into nets. You know, I won't play it in, I'll just want to get it knocked in. To be honest, if I was going to go on a bowling machine, I'd probably just put a sheet on it. Having tapped it up, I think it'll be fine to go almost straight away, but I'll get it around on a knocking machine and get it done, and then yeah, we'll take it into a net. I just want to have a hit with it and see what it's like. So there you have it, the Gray Nicolls NeoCore bat. The two that we've got in the 500 and Players Editions, I'm just excited to kind of try these out. They are very different to what you would normally use. You're going to get probably more stiffness because the handles are so thick. Interested to see how the interaction is with the pinned handle and the way it slots in. Does that change the feeling? Interested to see how, with the amount of coring, you know, wood that they've taken out there, how that will affect performance. Obviously from tapping a mallet there's a change in tone, but when you're using it normally in a game, will you notice that? I want to see whether the swing, you know, they're not super light bats, but they'll move and sort of swing hopefully as well as a regular bat would. They certainly feel lighter than what their dead weight says, even more so with the 500 one. That's the one I suppose I'm extra interested in because it's actually significantly lighter than I thought it was going to be. You know, that was the one that sort of hit 2.5 ounces in terms of weight saving. The Players Edition one was an ounce lighter, but I'm not sure you know, what the reasoning around that is, other than I think maybe the handle on the 500 is a bit thicker. But yeah, I mean, they've tried to push the Pro profile there, so that pleases some people there. You have got the flatter toe, which will please a lot of people as well, although, you know, I've always said the flat toe to me is stupid, because you're more likely to break it because it's a sharp corner there. You're more likely to get run out because your bat will get jammed in there. But yeah, it's the flat toe, it's the Pro toe that a lot of people like. Full shape that people want, they want it to pick up light, it picks up light. The question around your hands, you know, it being so thick there, whether or not it's something you really want, and plus wearing gloves it'll be even thicker. But the real question for me is, how is it going to ping? Is it going to ping that differently? And if it does ping really differently, are we all going to be racing out? Is every single company going to be racing out to try and emulate this? Like I said, hollowing out, other companies can do. The one thing they won't be able to do is the handle, because that's where the patent application sits, is in the handle. I guess we'll find out whether it makes a difference or not. But these were the NeoCores from Gray Nicolls. Really excited to try this one out. That one, expect it to go into a raffle. So if you're desperate for one, you haven't been able to get one, if you're someone that really wants one but you're not going to fork out the 700 quid, then yeah, I know that this is going to go into a raffle, which will be really, really cool for someone to kind of win. And actually I'd be interested to get their feedback from the winner as to how they got on with it. So yeah, the Gray Nicolls NeoCore, available sometime in the future when they get more stock back in. Right, take care guys.